Hello folks, welcome to my first Cities Skyline how-to video. In this edition, I'm going to show you how to fix an overcrowded transit line. Now, you might be thinking, Sam, I know how to do that. Just send more vehicles or upgrade from buses to trams or trams to subways. To that I say, yes, more capacity works. But sometimes you have to dig a little deeper. Just throwing more vehicles at the problem isn't always the most optimal solution. Sometimes the problem is the layout of the transit route itself, and that's the case here in Aldea with the popular Havel-Arno bus. So let's go fix that.
If you look here, this Havel-Arno bus is absolutely jammed to the gills consistently at this terminal. And I could throw more buses at it, but here's the thing. Check out the flow of passengers on this route at all the other stops. It's so disproportional to this terminal. 330 waiting there, and none of the other stops crack. None of the other stops even crack 20. This terminal is a midpoint on this route. So here's the Havel-Arno bus. Let's do... So the Havel-Arno bus runs all the way out here, does this loop around this section. It also goes all the way out here and goes out to the Portland. So the terminal... It stops across the street when it's coming this way, and it goes into this terminal when it's going that way. And this is what's kind of interesting. On this side of the street, there's only 13. So what it's telling us when Havel-Arno pulls in here, where there's 300 some odd folks waiting, and there's only 13 waiting here, is that I need to break this bus route in two. There's way more people wanting to go down Havel Avenue out that way on this bus route than there is wanting to go up Arno Street. And so every bit of additional capacity I'm throwing at it to try and deal with the 312 that pile up here and want to go that way also ends up being wasted cluttering up the streets going this way. The way to fix that is to break the route in two. So if this is the a start point for the buses going that way, I can right size that without throwing way too many buses on the routes that are coming out of this terminal and going down Arno Street. So we're going to break it in two, and that's going to be messy, and I wasn't really looking forward to it. And I think maybe the way to do it is to first create the new, I guess it's Havel-Arno, create the new Havel-Arno out of the one free bay I have here in this terminal, program in all the same bus stops, and then go back to the existing Havel-Arno and just cut off that whole side and it stop here at this terminal. So I think that's how we're going to do this, or try anyway. So let's see. I'm going to start a new line at that terminal. Where's the first stop? Up here. This is the high school, so it generates a fair bit of traffic in the area. And so then it'll come down and loop around the block to make its way into that terminal. It's an interesting question as to what vehicle I actually want to use on this line, because right now I'm using the big size articulated buses. But with it broken off from the other crazy jammed part of the route. I wonder if the size 50s would do rather than the 80s. I think I'm gonna play it safe and leave the articulated buses on it. If it proves that there isn't that much demand, we can always downgrade later. And this is Havel Arno. From the Havel terminal out through Arno. Okay, so we got that one. There it is. So that's there. So now we're gonna go and modify. Try anyway. In fact, I think I better pause to do this. Separating them will make it easier. Okay, so that's the right one to delete, because we can be guided by the previous. Oh, I didn't actually pause it. So this is the right one to scrap. Also selected the right one. So now we're just the game's helpfully leaving the main one that we're getting rid of on top each time, and leaving the one that we placed over it in place, which is kind of nice of it. And now we're over to the tail end here. So that's the bus route we do want. This is the one we don't. So now we'll slide this one back down to where it belongs. And that's the Briarton bus, so that's fine. So we now have, it looks, why is that happening? Oh, it's turning around so it can get into the terminal. Well, that's kind of dumb. It should just come down here and go up. Oh, because it's still coming into this terminal. That's what we still need to scrap. There. Now it's gonna take a little detour down this residential area. I'd prefer if it went here, made the right, and then turned it over, but I can live with that. Probably will perform more effectively doing that anyway. Okay, so we do need to rename this route because it is no longer serving Havel Arno. It's Havel Kiers. There's Havel Arno. So now this is Havel Portlands, since Portlands is the end of the route. Okay, I'm going to let things run for a few minutes here and see what happens.
So I've had the chance to let things run a little bit for traffic to resolve, and I'm pleased to say that our new bus routes, the changes we made, seem to be working quite well. You can see here the Havel Portlands route, it's got 250 waiting, which is a little bit more, but it actually has been very much getting pushed down by the buses, by the frequency. So yeah, here comes one now, so this should get it. Yeah, there we are. We're down to basically 1.5 buses of wait time, which for this major transit stop isn't too bad. It's hard to keep things like absolutely flat at this location just because the amount of transfers that are happening between all the routes at this spot. But before, this was really punching up to 300-400. Now there have been times that this bus route has actually been completely cleared, and that never happened before, ever, right? It was always overburdened. See there, we're down to like 30 waiting, so I'm really happy with that. And what's kind of interesting is I've done that, and we're actually running 2 less buses than we were before. The old route had 24 of the articulated buses going. This one has 22. And if you look at it, a lot of the buses are half full because the kind of demand center is still lopsided, but we're not running empty buses, at least not. I mean, 7 and 8 is kind of weak on that one there. But the capacity is being used much more efficiently than all those articulated buses that used to go up that way, where there really wasn't demand for them. Interestingly, speaking of the Arno side, the change I was able to make there was even more significant than I thought. This is now our Havel Arno bus. We are able to actually switch to minibuses for that route because although it does cover a significant geographic territory, the demand is just very low. There aren't big drivers of, besides the one high school, there's not a whole lot of destinations, so it's just kind of this relatively low density residential. And so we're able to use these minibuses, and they really are doing a great job of managing that route. I wasn't expecting to be able to go to the minibuses. I thought we would need to keep like a normal sized bus on that route, but the minibuses seem to be working well. One of the things I like about the minibus approach for this route, let me just go find one. There's one. So yeah, these minibuses are great because if you look at the kind of routing here, I could probably get away with just using 2 regular sized buses, but I kind of like the fact that we have 6 buses on this route versus 2 or maybe 3 regular sized ones, because it gives a little bit more frequency. There's something to be said for not having to wait so long for the bus to actually come to the stop. So the minibuses let us right size the capacity while maintaining some frequency on the route. So on the whole, yeah, there we're at 42, life, the universe, and everything right there, which is really not a place that we ever were before we made these changes. So on the whole, very pleased with how this has turned out. I should have done it ages ago. What's the main benefit in game? Main benefit is really I'm not cluttering up the street with buses that I don't need. There's a small cost savings. The mini buses are cheaper to run than the articulated buses, and I've cut 2 of the articulated off of this route overall, and the other route is being served by these cheaper mini buses. So there's a small cost savings, but I mean, let's be real. The city's budget right now, we got $52 million, almost $53 million in the bank. The extra $3 or $4 a week it costs to have the articulated buses is not really going to make any difference. But for me, the satisfaction is, well, this is actually how a real transit agency would run. In real life, operating costs are significant. You want to make sure that you're using your resources effectively, and I try and do the same thing in game. And so what would a real transit agency do in this situation? They would put their articulated buses where there is the demand for them. They wouldn't run them on routes where it doesn't make any sense. even if they could afford to. You don't just waste money. So I kind of take some satisfaction that the routes are actually running the right size buses for the job. And I think that's an end unto itself, really, in many ways. So very happy with how this has turned out, and I hope that if maybe there's something useful that you've taken away that you can use in your own city as you kind of juggle what you want to do transit-wise. So thanks for watching.